Brad,
Well,
so while you got your energy drink in front of you, we did
yeah,
chat a little bit earlier, and since it was mentioned already at least once, do you have anything you want to say about the one of one Lord of the Rings card?
yeah. What an so I'm allowed to say a few things now, but anyways, it was I had the opportunity to transport the card to ensure that it was graded and return it to the order. Sorry, to the owner. So it was fun. So I was contacted and I transported the card to PSA and got it graded and then returned it to the owner. Now that was kind of my role in the whole thing, but what an exciting opportunity I had. I was stoked. So
Now this card, now just to give a little background for the uninitiated. So this card, so
please
Magic the
do, because
Gathering
I
is a
don't
card
get
game.
it.
Yeah, so Magic the Gathering is a card game, but up until this point, they've had the rares because that's pretty standard with trading card games these days, but and especially even when Magic started. This is kind of a Lord of the Rings. It's a Magic the Gathering slash Lord of the Rings kind of co-opt. Magic started doing this brands. They've had a couple of different things. They've done Transformers. They've done this Lord of the Rings. They've done a couple of different things, which have done well for them. Some of these properties have a lot of popularity, so obviously you're mixing two fan bases with the card game. But what makes this one unique is that this is the first time that Magic has they've started to do some serial numbered cards, but this is the first time they've ever done a one of one.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, in the sports card world, we're used to that premise now. Like it's a completely different thing. But this one, obviously, it's Lord of the Rings, and it's literally a card for a ring. Tales of Middle Earth, but it's the one ring, right? So they're doing that whole thing as part of it. And this card became one of the ones that had the bounty. So the infamous bounty, and I think it's David Adams, Brad.
Yep, Dave. Yeah, Adam had the bounty for $1 million before it was released. So
Correct. So right now, as far as we're like, that's why when Brad mentioned that, I go, oh well, that's great to give a little color, a little flavor to it, so that we actually had a connection that we could actually speak to it for a second. But obviously, it's a big deal. On paper, this is worth $1 million because there's at least one party willing to. And David Adams has done this with the other card when they did the Drew Jones thing. They paid out the 250,000. So they've made good on the bounties they've offered. So it's one of those things where I've heard rumors. The rumors are out there that there's some parties that have offered as much as 2 million, but obviously they're kind of less verified. The David Adams one, at least they've been around. So I would consider the David Adams one to be a legit offer on the table. If I'm the person who has this, like go cash out your $1 million, go get your $1 million.
you know what? So the again, I had to sign an NDA, so I want to make sure I don't say
Sure,
anything in place. But I'm allowed to talk about my venture with it.
sure.
I made sure that's before I contacted you today. So yeah, the David Adams is 100% $1 million bounty. That offer is on the table. I think there's a multiple other parties right now, and there's a PR firm that's handling it for the owner.
Mm-hmm.
He or she. I never met the actual owner, so I don't know who it is personally. But to hire a lawyer, to hire a marketing firm, just to come out and do everything, very very smart decision on his behalf or her behalf.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, it
Yep.
was awesome. And you talk a little bit about certain things, and I've been reading all day because the last 72 hours of my life have been involved around this card. And you read everything. We talk about the integrity, like Bobby, Eric. All jokes aside, we come on here and every day there's negativity in the hobby, and it's like loaded boxes, and this person's holding back on this. I can say from PSA to the owner of the card to Adam Martin and David Adams, like they as soon as this was authenticated and verified, it was released to the public. There was
Mm-hmm.
no backyard shenanigans. This wasn't a loaded box. This is a true collector that purchased this and was fortunate enough to get it. There's it the whole
That's
story
awesome.
when it does on play. Again, there's nothing that people can poke, and I know everyone wants to kind of poke some things about the loaded boxes, this, that, and oh, this was probably put out 2-3 weeks ago, and someone would have had it. All that's not true. It went from point A to get out there, and the integrity of everyone involved in it. And again, not just saying that on PSAs or because Adam's my friend with David Adams or all this stuff. Everybody moved quickly to get the card authenticated. and then they released the information to the public. There was no games to be played. So
There you
No,
go.
that's great to hear. But because, like you said, every day there's something, and a lot of it makes a lot of sense. The negativity. Other stuff is just utter ridiculousness. But no, that's great to hear that it's a collector, that they hit something big and they did it the right way, and they're going through all the right things, and if they choose to, maybe they'll profit off it, and good for them. I think that's great, and I'm glad that there's no holes in it, and that's good news for the hobby. When something, whatever you collect is, we all know that people collect what they like, and that's the most important thing. And if it's this or a football card or basketball, hockey, whatever, um, if it's something this important to the hobby, and it is this exciting where it's getting a lot of news and press, and it's all done the right way, that is good for the hobby.
Yeah, I agree, Eric, honestly. And again, there's no smoke and mirrors, or there's nothing that's said about it. As soon as I could tell, I called Carlos today. As soon as I could mention it, I was so excited. Like, I'm not the best person to keep secrets in the world. I can keep a secret when it's something that has to be, and it's very important. But it's very tough to do, especially when I was so excited about it. Not even being a collector, but not even being obviously I'm not into Magic cards. Sherry collects Pokemon, but it was just cool. And to see it, and to kind of, when you had it was, I don't want to say it moved me, but like the whole thing, it was cool. It was, it was a little overwhelming. Right. And we didn't, the whole thing about it was, people are now, they're talking about, the grade, and that there was about 20 or 25 people that had claims in that they pulled the card.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was contacting PSA. So the number one thing to do was to get it authenticated. Forget about the grade on it. Forget about what it says, but
it's 101. The grade doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And so you kind of said should have been, was it authentic? Did you know for sure? Did we know for sure? That's when I went out on the limb. I talked to my daughter, Summer and Sherry, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make sure that I can be part of this, and I can get this card to PSA, get it safe back to them. I did all on my own dollar, taking the chance. I said, you know what? If it's not real, oh well. It was an adventure to try to get done for this guy or girl, and see what happens. So it was awesome. It was a long day, so I didn't sleep for 48 hours, but we got through it.
And I, for one, appreciate Brad's efforts to get my card back and forth so that I could afford to pay for my AC. So that's obviously, that with
I was wondering why you didn't want a job. You're up for $1 million pay.
That's for peasants, Eric. $1 million Magic card is how you do it. I just hope Brad keeps the same energy after I make sure that he hand delivers my $15 million G-string a month, because I want 15. I want 15 for that one. See, we're taking it to another tier. It's another level even entirely. So real quick, I'll read a couple of these comments here and get caught up. Thank you all for the comments, everybody. Appreciate it. Anybody read the article on ESPN about Leighton? Yes, I do. I have it on one of my tabs here, and I want to get to that in a minute, so we can touch on that here in a moment. But I wanted to make sure Brad had a chance to share the story, since he shared some of that with me, so I thought it'd be good to talk about that. So we'll come back. It's like, was it pulled in Canada? So not too many details. Okay, so here's one question can I ask you. Let's just put this as a yes or no. In order to facilitate this transaction, outside of the obvious PSA thing, did the item come from the same country as where PSA is?
No.
There you go. That's basically what I wanted to cover there. To whoever ends up owning it, maybe they sell it down the road, maybe they don't, maybe they hold it for a while. For that segment of the hobby, it would probably be best if the owner is a collector who wants to hold it for a while and doesn't put it on the market again for a while. It should go into a collection, sit for some time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what will happen. I think the person that owns it now, that pulled it, would absolutely love to hold on to it. But at the end of the day, I kind of look at the same thing as me with the Gretzky rookie. I have a Gretzky PSA 7. That's the highest one, because I've had some 8s over the years. I've never had a 9 or 10, but if I did, I would sell it. It's not in my bracket to keep something that at that price point. You know what I mean? It's just.
I think for the person who pulled it, you take the $1 million. Just flat out. My advice is take the $1 million. Take it right now. Take it. Deal done. Get her done. Take the bounty, cash in, have a good time. But what I'm saying is I'm hoping the person, David Adams, when they're doing these bounties, I won't speak for them, but generally speaking, there's a marketing element to it, but you're also doing a facilitation. At some point, it's going to get into somebody's hands, whoever it is, and presumably it's somebody with deep pockets to make that worthwhile for them to offer such a bounty. So hopefully, whoever ends up with it on the other side of that transaction is a person who's willing to hold it for a while, because it will do better for the game and the card in the long run if it doesn't just get hot potatoed.
Yeah, I agree. And think about from this standpoint. Again, saying that Adams, one of my closest friends, he's put the bounty out there. It's $1 million, and he's publicly said, you know what, shop it, see what more you can get. My bounty's there. You can come back to me and take it, but why don't you go and let's see what the open market can bring for it? Because the last thing in the world Adam would do is buy it for $1 million and then flip it for $2 million. Then he just that just defeats the whole purpose. It just doesn't. The optics of that are just not good. And I think if I haven't talked to him about this, but I think if they buy it, him being the super collector that he is, I think if Dave and Adams buy it, I think they'll hold on to it, like you said, Carlos, and keep it for the next 5-10 years and see what happens, right?
Yeah. You can always put it on display. You can always put it on display in a store or something.
You're right. That's what I was going to say. That you spend $1 million, you get the press, and you have it sitting there in the store with some big scary security guard standing next to it all day to make it kind of look even, more relevant or whatever. And you make some money off of that because people are going to come into the store to see it and buy other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just do the Marshall Fogel road trip thing. Do the Marshall Fogel thing with the PSA 10 mantle. Have somebody roll in with the armored truck and do the whole, pomp and circumstances. Look, it can be great marketing. And at the end of the day, if they can afford it, and that's what they decided to facilitate, there's an opportunity for them. I want it to be owned, whether it's David Adams themselves, Brad, or somebody else who's part of this transaction. I want it to be somebody who I envision them being somebody who has an office with like a dinosaur skull in it. I think there should be like somebody whose just office has a T-Rex skull there just for reasons. I feel like that's the right thing. It's like it should happen. T-Rex skull, Lord of the Rings, 1 of 1.
There you
go.
I can see that.
I got a question for Brad on this one. I guess, how do we end up with that value?
Which value?
The value of the card.
Adam Martin said it right out of the get-go.
Yeah, I understand. I wonder how they end up with the value is really, what I'm asking. So
yeah,
it's like, is it in conjunction with basketball? Is it same type of thing? Like that's a hell of a bounty to put out on a card that you don't even really. It's his first one. I understand that it's 1 of 1, but in the trading world, that's a gigantic leap from what's it, the Black Lotus, I guess, or whatever.
Black Lotus is the big one in Magic. Yeah.
How much is that worth?
If it's an alpha one, I'll double check, but the alpha ones.
Post Malone, Post Malone bought one for $800,000 at one point. I don't know which one it was, but at that time he paid $800,000. I don't know if it was a PSA 10, but that was the most expensive Magic card. But Bobby, they're not numbered either, and they're not. I mean,
Understood.
And the Lord of the Rings as well. You add that element into it with that franchise,
I would honestly wager then, Bobby, if the 800K is the biggest one, I think he probably just looked at it as $1 million is a good round number. That would it pops off the page. Saying $750,000 is like it's still a ton of money, but it just doesn't have the same ring as we'll make it 7 figures. We'll call it immediately 7-figure card.
Same ring. It does the same ring. Yeah.
Yeah. They did absolutely. The ring is the key.
He did say shop it, right? You can shop it if you want. So
yeah. But at least in that case, you
start
at least
$750K and then kind of say shop it.
I think it's just the marketing. I think he's looking at it from the marketing perspective of saying 7 figures, because they did the same thing with the Drew Jones card, and the Drew Jones card had a 2-level bounty. It was $250,000 if you offered the card just in and of itself, but if you wanted to take a wager that the guy would end up in the Hall of Fame, they bumped that to $1 million. So they actually gave 2 tiers. If you want to take a longer term risk, you could take a stab at that, or just take the $250K. And the person who pulled it took the $250K, which was a smart move. Take them. Nobody knows what Drew Jones is going to be, anything. So it's like take the money. But if you're doing Drew Jones for like this random prospect who hasn't even played in the majors yet, $250K for that, you're talking about Magic has very popular, and this is the first and only one of one as it stands today. I don't think a million's completely out of whack. I don't know if anybody else would pay that, but from a marketing perspective, you can sell. Obviously, they have the money, so from their perspective, they've obviously got it. So
For sure,
they can afford to do that. So
Yeah.
it's worth some value. At least it's a headline grabber.